Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I'm back with another podcast with one of the amazing guests we have here with us today. Her name is Sana Khalid. She is started ecosystem builder. She is wearing a lot of hats. She has been a founder of Minerva, which is a working space where she's creating spaces for digital and physical world. I want her to introduce herself with more details to my audience. So Sana, thank you so much for taking out some time on this Sunday to become a part of this show. So the floor is all yours now.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. My introduction has always been very complicated because, like you said, I do a lot of different things. But I think two things that stand out in my work is one, as a startup ecosystem builder, I've done a lot of work with the startup ecosystem, helping founders or working with investors or accelerators, etc. And two, the past couple of years, I think a lot of my work has been around helping companies recover from the problems that they're facing. A lot of that work has had to do with organization design or with people problems and so on and so forth. And so that has been a very important stream of work for me. And these days, I think around 2 years ago, I took a little break from work. And during that time, I was still doing some. So I did a CEO mastermind, for example, again, working with startups, founders, CEOs has always been that's something that's very close to my heart. So doing a little bit of that. I also started my own podcast called She Talks Business, did a few episodes of
Nice.
that. And now I'm sort of coming back full time to work again in the people and community space. So what you said about Minerva in terms of the on physical and digital spaces, the idea is can we have more meaningful, deeper conversations around work, how we work, where we work, what we work on, what the future of work looks like, etc. So yeah, I think that would be the simplest way to say what I do without a lot of the details.
I think you explained it really well. What was the exact moment you realized you were ready to leave corporate life and bet on yourself?
It's interesting because there was really like my entrepreneurial journey was it sort of came out of boredom and not from any realization of like I need to build something of my own or whatever. So I was working in Dubai. This was 2008. And then I was working there. I worked there for 3 years, and then because I was also studying at the same time, so I thought I needed a little break to come back to Pakistan and then give my exams and then go back to work. But while I was in Pakistan, I think 1 month, less than 1 month of being in Pakistan, I was so bored. I was like, I have to do something while I'm here on a break, and that culminated into Minerva,
Wow.
and then I never got to go back. So that's how my entrepreneurial journey started. It was no big moment of, oh, like now it's time to jump ship. It wasn't.
Because it's really hard for sometimes people to get out of the comfort zones and start something of their own. Like in, I think your journey is a bit different and interesting at the same time. Very nice. Okay,
Yeah.
what was the hardest
Yeah.
personal sacrifice you made when choosing the founder path?
I think I was too young and naive to even think about sacrifice at that point in time, right? So
Okay.
at that point, it didn't, nothing felt like a sacrifice. I just made a choice that I was excited about more than anything else. But I think in hindsight, now when I look back, what maybe something that I lost or something that was hard was that when you choose to become an entrepreneur or a founder, or you choose any unconventional career path. So in my case, it's not just that I became a founder, it's also that I did a lot of different things. Like I worked in recruitment, I worked in ran a co-working space, I was CEO of a startup accelerator. Like I was doing a lot of different things. So when you choose an unconventional career path, I think you have to sacrifice the comfort of what conventional success looks like, right? So if you have a very regular conventional job, you can compare yourself to others, even though I don't suggest it, but you can still compare yourself to others and say, oh, in 5 years, I should be at this title, this salary, so on and so forth. But when you choose an unconventional career path, you also have to accept that your success will look very, very different from somebody who's chosen a conventional career path and what conventional success looks like. Like my friends, when they graduated and 5 years into their careers, they had fancy titles and they were receiving large checks at the end of every month. And I was running Minerva with like, and I didn't know how to pay salaries for the next month and never had enough money and so on and so forth. So it was very, very different, but success looked very different for me. And I was just at that point in time comparing myself to the wrong success metric. So I think in hindsight,
I
I
think
can say
you were
that
able
maybe
to create a community
that
at that
comfort
time.
was.
Yeah, and I think you were able to build a community at that time when people were getting fancy titles and big checks, right?
Yeah, I think I like what that helped me build, which wasn't comparable to what others were doing, was build this community of people who believed in what
Yeah,
I could do, who trusted in my
yeah.
vision. I built credibility. I built a huge network of people, and all of that eventually contributed to wherever I was able to be or what I was able to launch or achieve so far. But of course, at that point in time, it looks really messy, and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. So yeah.
And this reminds me of a very famous quote which everyone quotes these days. There is one plan which you have, there's one plan by God, and God plans is always better. So I think it's a divine plan which we humans follow. But yeah, we have to do some efforts. But at the end of the day, it's the divine's plan. Very nice. Okay, so when you step into a broken company, what's the very first signal you look for to assess or if a turnaround is possible?
So I'd say it's not necessarily just one thing, because there's a couple of things that determine whether you can fix a company or not. So I would say there's actually three things maybe. One, of course, one of the things that the first question perhaps is, how much time do we have? What's the runway look like? So you look at all the important numbers in terms of what is the cash position like, who do we have to pay immediately, what the daily burn rate is, so on and so forth. So, do we have enough runway? That's the first question to look at, because most of the time when you're looking to turn around a business, it takes a few months. So, if it's a small and medium sized entity, it will still take you at least 6 months and maybe more, 1.5 year, 2 years to fix something. If you can't survive that long, then that's a problem. I think the second thing, and of course, there are ways to extend that runway and so on and so forth. But I think the second most important thing that you look at is also, is there any residual energy left, right? Like, do people still care? The people who work there, the
Hmm.
board, the founder, if I'm going in as a consultant, the CEO, like, do these people still care about what happens to the company? Is there any residual energy left in the organization?
Right,
Are people maybe frustrated but still trying to make it work? That's still doable. But if there's this learned helplessness that has set in, then it's very, very hard to turn around a business, right? If people have decided that, oh, nothing's going to work,
right.
they're hopeless, they feel like nothing can change, that's a very, very difficult fix then. And then I think the third, which is probably equally important, is what are you going to build around? What is one thing that the company does really well or has, that you can build around? There has to be some kernel of some hope of, maybe it's the team is great, maybe it's the brand, maybe it's a product, the product is brilliant, maybe it's some kind of IP that you have, whatever it is, but there has to be something that you will build the company around. So when I go into a company like that, I would first try to see, is there something that I can build around, or something to really fix at all? And if that doesn't exist, then what are you going to build, or what are you going to fix anyways? I would say those three things are at the top of my mind when I'm speaking to somebody who's at a point where they need a turnaround, or if I go into an organization or join them full time. I think those three things are extremely critical.
I think you talked about a very interesting thing that you also want to see how motivated the people are. Like, if they're disappointed now, so if they are disappointed, do you try to motivate them or you leave them as it is and move on?
Look, it depends on, I mean, there's a couple of situations. Let's say if the founder or the board doesn't care, right? And they've given up. It's extremely, extremely hard to bring them back, right? Like, if the founder's given up and they're like, I don't know, like, just see if you can fix it. If that hopelessness becomes a hindrance, then you can't fix an organization. It's
Hmm.
almost impossible to fix it, especially if that their hopelessness starts to get in the way of doing things better or bigger or whatever. If it's the team, there are ways to obviously bring the team back. So it's possible, but like I said, it's harder. You can bring a team back from hopelessness, but it's just harder. And then all these three things matter together, right? Have the time to instill hope in people? Do we have that kind of runway at all? Do we have the bandwidth for it? So on and so forth. So yes, it's doable. I mean, I don't think anything is impossible, but it's just a lot harder.
Yeah. And while working with different startups and companies, do you think that the vision of the CEO is all the time inculcated in the lower employees, like individual contributors, or is it not the case most of the times? No,
I
right?
think most of the time it's not the case. Most of the
Yeah.
time, either that vision doesn't exist at all. Right? So you're running on a day to day basis. There is no end goal. You don't know what you're running towards, but you're just running towards something. But I think what I find even worse is when that vision exists, but it exists in the head of the founder. And I think that's just sad, right? And it's they don't realize I've made that mistake. We at that point we don't realize. We feel like, everybody understands what we're doing, why we're here, so on and so forth. But these are things that you have to hammer in all the time. You have to talk about it all the
Yeah.
time for that clarity to equally exist in everybody's minds in the organization and not just yours.
And I think it's why it's important because if I know the vision of the company and the CEO, I my way of working is going to be a little different because I started to own that business, right? And I did this experiment in one of the HR meetups, and I tried to ask this question. And to my surprise, you're right that people were not aware of the CEO's vision at
Yeah,
all.
I think it makes such a huge difference. Like, I can give you Minerva's example of how communicating what you want to build and
Yeah,
why you want to build it makes a difference. And I will tell you, Minerva is
correct.
not a very big organization. We've been around really, really long, but we've been around more of like a my playing ground than a proper organization, right?
I
And it's only
understand.
in the past few years that has started to take shape. But despite our small size, despite the fact that we were giving okay salaries, but we were not giving like the most amazing salaries that somebody could get for the most competent people as well, so many people have contributed beyond their roles. So many people have been associated with Minerva long after their jobs ended. So many people have offered to work for free simply because they understand why you're doing what you're doing and where you
Yeah,
want to be, and they align with it. It makes a huge difference. Versus you could be a big company, but if I don't understand how I contribute to it, I might not be that motivated. It might be very transactional. That relationship might be very transactional in nature.
100%, 100%. I agree with you. Okay, so what's the biggest myth people believe about fixing struggling businesses?
That you can throw money at a problem and fix it. I think that's the biggest one. Like, people feel like if only we had more money, if we had better processes, so on and so forth, we can fix things. And yes, money can buy you time, but it cannot fix broken economics, right? So if your economics is broken as an organization, if your business model is broken, especially when you're talking about small and medium sized entities in emerging markets, if that is not in place and fixed, you can't just throw money at a business and fix it. So at the end of the day, it really just falls down to the economics and the business model of the business, and whether the founder or the CEO has the stomach to do what's necessary. Again, if they don't have the stomach to do, you can put it as much money as you want, but if they can't do what's needed, it's not going to work.
100%. I agree with you. Okay, next is a very interesting question. So, can you walk my audience through a moment when everything was going wrong and how you pulled the company back from the edge?
I do not want to relive that moment. But I will not talk about one specific company. I just feel like that might not be fair. But I can talk about generally what that moment
Hmm.
looks and feels like and what you can do to fix it. So usually the worst case scenario is when you don't have enough money to make payroll for the next month, when you are swamped with work. There's, let's say,
Hmm.
client deadlines, so on and so forth, and you have people to pay outside of the organization as well, right? So you have obligations that need to be met, you have deadlines, the team is hopeless, like you said, like we talked about, clarity of vision doesn't exist, so on and so forth. That's the worst case scenario of like a bundle of things, which is sort of, you feel like it's the end of the world. And so a couple of things that I usually do or have done is, the first thing has to be to have a very, very honest and candid, transparent conversation with the team. So I think this is something that I've learned with time, that you can protect the team and you should protect the team, yes, but sometimes it's really important for the team to know what's really happening, right? So if you're in a bad phase and you know that next month you might not be able to give salaries, or you might not be able to give full salaries, whatever that is, a transparent conversation about, here, this is the problem, this is what might happen because of this problem, and this is what I'm doing to try and fix it, and here's how confident I am in whether I will be able to fix it or not. And I think that's one thing that I've learned, is that yes, that transparency might mean that some people will walk away, but it's only fair for them to know, because
Yeah,
a lot of people are running houses, they're running
correct.
families on that income, so it's unfair to them. You might be trying to keep the company together. So that's one, having that honest and candid conversation. Number two is, obviously, you want to extend the runway that you have, and there are a couple of ways that you can extend that runway. One, of course, there's cost cutting. So you find out what excess things you have on your P&L that you can cut off. Interestingly and funnily, a lot of times it's subscriptions that you can cut off. You buy subscriptions, businesses buy subscriptions.
Yeah,
Somebody
yeah,
in 5 years ago bought a subscription, nobody's used it ever since, so on and so
yeah.
forth. And for small and medium businesses, that's a cost that adds up. So it could be that. It could be, maybe, can we work remotely or hybrid or whatever if there's an office. So you could try and cut down your costs wherever possible to be able to make payroll and extend the runway. Third, of course, you negotiate payment terms with your vendors in terms of, can we pay you after 3 months, so on and so forth. Again, it comes with being transparent about vendors as well. Okay, I will not be able to pay you next month. Is that okay? So on and so forth. At least you can be transparent. So you renegotiate your payment terms with whoever you need to pay. And then also in terms of clients, so sometimes if you're not paying your team and they're also swamped with work and spending like 12 hours or 14-hour days trying to fix things, you try and negotiate with your client in terms of deadlines or in terms of payment terms as well, right? Can they pay us sooner than they had planned to pay us, so on and so forth. So you have all these conversations which are very, very difficult and very, very not fun, but I think those are a few things that you do. And then once you've gotten your runway and so on, then you start thinking about, okay, how do I fix things? Because then you have some breathing room of, okay, now I can make payroll, my team is satisfied with the answers or plan that I've given them, they're aware of what's going to happen, my vendors know, my stakeholders know, so on and so forth. Now how can I fix things? And then that fixing has is dependent on, what the problem actually is.
I think after being transparent and then fixing that problem at the same time, the level of trust you have this time is going to be very different, right?
Sorry, I lost you in the middle.
I'm sorry. I'm saying when you are very transparent with the employees, with the vendors and everyone, and they are standing with you, and when you are successful after all the hurdles, the level of trust they're going to develop is going to be very different this time.
100%. I think that's probably one of the biggest mistakes a lot of people make, is that they think they can fix by not having that conversation. They try and avoid that hard
Yeah.
conversation, but that hard conversation actually gets you a lot of support and puts a lot of pressure off of you. It also adds the pressure of accountability, but it also puts that pressure of, is the team with me or not with me? Do they know what's happening? So on and so forth. You get a lot more room to breathe when you once you've had that conversation, no matter how hard it might be.
100% correct. Right. Let's talk about some leadership aspect now. What leadership mistakes still stays with you, not with regret, but gratitude?
I think it's just what I said, right? It's sometimes you're trying to protect people and be nice. So let's say you'll not fire somebody because maybe they've been loyal, or maybe you feel like, it's a nice person, I don't want to let them go, so on and so forth. But what I've learned is that sometimes being nice can look cruel or harsh, because when you keep people stuck in a job that they're not good at, you're not necessarily being nice to them. You're actually
Yeah.
also limiting them. They might be doing some amazing work somewhere else, but you've sort of kept them here. So yeah, I think that perhaps it was a difficult learning, but I feel like it's a good learning for me in terms of I can now be harder about something, but know that the end result might be a good one.
I think I've also learned this the very hard way, because when I became a leader for the first time, I was like, I need to handle my team with a lot of care and love. And then I realized when there was a time I need to be a little harsh, people got scared. What's happening to us? And so I think at the start of your leadership, you should show both the flavors, some soft side and the hard side, so that people are not surprised at the end of the day. And because you have to be like a parent, you have to be harsh sometimes, you have to be soft sometimes. Yeah. Okay. What internal narrative helps you stay strong when things feel completely out of control?
This too shall pass.
That's the best answer.
Yeah, I think that's about it.
Okay. Which untapped opportunity in South Asia excites you the most right now?
I have ADHD, so almost every problem and opportunity excites me. But and I think there is a lot of opportunity. Emerging markets generally, there is so much broken that there's so much to fix. But I think my interest these days is more aligned with two things. One is how can more women control capital or
Hmm.
build wealth. That's one, and I think it's a very big market to tap into. And then the second one has to do with the future of work. And I know the future of work sounds like this buzzword, but what I mean is the interest. Like there's so much changing in how we are working. There is so much changing geopolitically as well. A lot is changing, and there is a lot of opportunity to build the infrastructure of how things work. So whether it's the gig economy, remote work, collaboration, so on and so forth, there's a lot of opportunity there in terms of building systems that are more aligned to our markets, right? So with all that change happening, I think we need to build our own playbooks. We can't import playbooks from the Silicon Valley. Our markets are very different, our infrastructure is very different, our talent is very different, talent maturity is very different, so on and so forth. So I'd say there's a lot that can be done. I mean, there's a lot of work that can be done in the climate space or sustainability space or agriculture if you look at Pakistan, etc. But
Yeah.
I think for me, the more exciting, or what excites me today more than all of the others, is these two things.
Okay. Great. What does emotional discipline mean to you as a leader?
Sorry?
What does emotional discipline mean to you as a leader?
It means everything. I think it is one of the most important skills that a leader must have, because the emotion or energy that you take to work is contagious. So if you go into work all panicked, that's the energy the team absorbs as well. And if you can regulate your emotions and go in with calm, even the most panicky situations can be figured out. So I think a lot of people talk about this, the pause of when you think about a founder or a leader, the first thing that comes to mind is they're very execution first and they get things done and so on and so forth. But I think this is one place where the pause really, really helps. Maybe you're angry at someone, maybe something has gone extremely wrong, maybe you've lost a big client. But if you can take a pause and process that without sort of lashing out and without reacting to the situation, I think it does a lot of good to the team.
I agree with you. And I think these days, a lot of people lack this emotional intelligence part. And I think this is also a skill set. And we can talk a lot on a different podcast on this particular topic. So that's my favorite topic too, by the way. Okay, so you wore many hats: CEO, CMO, COO. Which role changed you the most as a human being?
As a human being, I think being a CEO, because as a CEO, there's a lot of competing priorities. There's a lot of competing interests. There's a lot of stakeholders with competing interests. So, as a CEO, I think you really learn what is more important to you as an individual. So, sometimes you have to choose between those competing priorities, those competing stakeholders, etc. So, I would think that becoming a CEO probably had the biggest impact on me as a person, and trying to navigate those competing priorities.
Interesting. Sana, I think we have talked a lot about some serious topics. Let's talk about some fun questions now. I do have some fun questions for you. So, what's your guilty pleasure after a brutal workday?
Food or a massage.
Okay, okay.
Those two things, hands down.
If your life were a movie, what would the title be?
Hmm. My life was a movie. It would be Gray, maybe.
Gray?
Yeah, because
Okay.
some of my friends make fun of me because every time they ask me a question, my answer starts with "it depends." So I live a lot in the nuance of things.
Okay.
I don't think the world is black and white. So if you ask me,
Okay.
is VC for me, money for me, or should I bootstrap? Or you say, should I become an entrepreneur or do a job? Or you should say, should I have Chinese today or Pakistani
It depends.
food? I'd say it depends.
I like that.
So yeah,
I think the movie name should
yeah,
be It
it's
Depends.
gray. I live in the gray of life, and that's actually very uncomfortable. And I'm proud of myself to have gotten comfortable sitting with that ambiguity of not being okay with there is no yes or no answer. There is context, and that context is important.
And I think that's a very good approach in a sense that you're not fixing your mindset to one thing. And when you're saying it depends, anything can come your way and you can tackle that. I think that's a very good approach. At the same time, very scary, but good approach as well. One business buzzword you wish would disappear forever.
My God, innovation and transformation, and these days AI, because somehow even like the scrappiest automations that could have been done 10 years ago are also being packed as AI. Yeah, I think there's a lot actually. Women empowerment would be one. Like I would say, please just get rid of these words. And I think they didn't start with bad intentions or with a bad concept in mind, but over time they've just
You're right.
turned into these buzzwords that I don't think I can choose one. I just want to get rid of all the buzzwords and get to the actual meat of the conversation.
Right. Late night strategy sessions or early morning deep work.
That's a tough one. These days, late night strategy sessions, I think I have like it it changes. Like I think for a few years I was in it a completely morning person.
Okay.
And then ever since I've moved to Bali, I love my slow mornings. So I don't want to think about anything in the morning. Before 1 p.m. I don't want to think about anything. So these days I'd be happier working later at night, but it changes.
Okay. Last question. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Okay. Black coffee?
Coffee. Although like we were caught at customs this time because we had so many tea bags. They were like, what is happening?
Okay. Okay.
So we had to explain to them that, we're Pakistani, we like our chai. But I can't do without a cup of coffee in the morning.
Thank you so much, Sana Khalid, for this amazing podcast. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and inshallah, I'll invite you in future too for some other topics. Thank you so much once again, and it was a pleasure having you in my show.
Thank you so
Any
much. It
last
was
word you
lovely.
wanna say? Go ahead.
Should I answer with it depends? It depends who's watching.
Yeah, it depends.
Yeah. No, I think we all need to take ourselves a little less seriously and learn. I'm learning still, so this is not like a preachy message, but I think we need to
Yeah,
all learn to manage our human side and our ambition somehow.
and that's what I talk about most of the time. Sometimes we are so much stuck in this professionalism and all that that we forget that at the end of the day we are humans, and the priority should be to develop human to human connection rather than B2B or B2C. So I totally agree with you. I think that's a great ending message. Thank you so much, Anna, once again. It was a pleasure having you in my show.
Thank you. It was lovely.
One second.